Greetings and welcome to the Badger Cave's West Wing once again for our bonus Polecat cast. This is a special show with the Sad Puppies. Alright, so what are the Sad Puppies? What are they? Oh shit.
Okay, alright, the Sad Puppies are a group created to oppose creeping political correctness and clique voting in the People's Choice Awards in science fiction. If you don't know who the People's Choice Awards in science fiction, they are called the Hugos. And we had the Hugo voting, I believe, two weekends ago. And we've covered this particular controversy within science fiction for a couple of years now, actually. And we're back again with the Sad Puppies to hear what they had to say about the latest installment on this ongoing drama. They're trying to reclaim science fiction from, well, the Butthurt Brigade. So we're with today the principal of Sad Puppies, the Sad Puppies 4 campaign, Kate Polk, and and Sarah Hoyt. Did I say your names right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, good. I'm always mispronouncing names. So why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, Sarah, Kate, actually, and then we'll go to Sarah.
Okay, I got into this by accident through being in on the whole thing from the start and being just a teeny bit opinionated. And, you know, you start seeing things like, hang on, how come the most popular books, the things that are just flying off the shelves, don't ever seem to see any kind of award space, when the most appalling dreck in a number of cases gets celebrated. So when Larry got started, I was in there supporting at the back and I've spent the last year being horribly evil, doing exactly what I say I'm going to do. And it, well, I don't know that I'd call it culminated, but I went to Worldcon 2 weeks ago, and to all of the business meetings, which is the engine where everything gets decided slowly. And of course I was at the Hugo ceremonies.
Mm-hmm. All right, so why don't we go over the history of the Sad Puppies a little bit. Your group was formed, and I know I gave an intro, but could you just sort of give a brief overview of what your overall intent with your campaigns?
If I may, calling it a group might be overestimating.
Okay, group.
Got organized. We're sort of like a loosely connected confederation that just we were talking about it, and it's like, you know, people keep asking, how is the leadership going past next year? And it's like, I don't know, either Amanda or I will get around to planning it. And it's nothing very formal because the individualists failed to organize. So, you know, we try, but organization is not our primary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So each iteration of like Sad Puppies, I know when Brad took it over, what he did was he opened up nominations. That's Brad Torgeson, who was the first, I think, the leader of Sad Puppies 3, right?
Yes.
Okay, and on Sad Puppies 3, which is when we sort of got into this particular controversy, Brad had basically just called for nominations for the People's Choice, the Hugo Awards in science fiction, and took nominations through his site, I believe, and then collated all of the ones, depending on how many nominations they got, and just listed the slate based on what was sent to him. He did not have any particular political focus, no focus on the identity of the people involved. It was just basically whoever nominated someone, whoever sent him an email, I believe, and nominated someone, and you know, and he just based it on that. This created a incredible backlash at the Hugos, to the point where they refused to award awards to people who were on his slate. And it wasn't his slate, it was a slate created by the audience that he had and anybody else who wanted to vote for a creation. Is this, am I accurately summarizing that?
Yeah,
Yes.
except that they, they play semantics. It's kind of like semantics coffin ball. So they decided that slate no longer meant a list of stuff that was recommended, but it meant an inflexible list for whom everyone had to vote in that order. Now, all of our posts told everyone, hey, these are the recommended stuff, just read them or vote for other stuff you like, just get involved. That was the big thing. But they decided, somehow that we had promulgated this slate from on high and told everyone to vote it without deviation. And a lot of the people who voted no award, and I still run into these idiots, so help me, are like, well, it was a slate and we're against slate voting, which, Locus publishes a slate, Locus magazine, which is the big magazine of the field. Every 2-bit author with a blog puts up a slate every year, but ours was uniquely bad because it was a slate. So it's probably best to call it a list. We had this list of recommended works. That was basically it.
Yeah, and then you actually advanced on the transparency of Brad's slate by having everyone vote completely publicly on the website that Kate put up. So nothing was private or hidden. Anybody could have gone through and found the same votes for the same groups of people, and you collated all of that and you created another slate from who voted on your website. And so now we're basically and all throughout this, the Sad Puppies, I don't want to say group, the Sad Puppies
Association.
Yes. Oh yeah, the Sad Puppies.
No, we're not even a cabal. We aspire to cabal them.
Okay, so all throughout this, the Sad Puppies have been accused of promoting, I guess you'd probably be accused of being alt-right, promoting alt-right stuff now,
yes.
and trying to get women out of science fiction and all kinds of stuff.
Minorities.
Yeah, which...
Larry, who started this, is of Portuguese descent. I am not only of Portuguese descent, but I was born and raised in Portugal, and my family all still lives there. So English is my third language. So it's it's amazing because the State Department considers us Latin. Apparently, I'm trying to keep myself out of science fiction.
Yeah, well, I mean, they really showed their colors, because with Sad Puppies 3, there was a female, I forget the name of, she's an editor who was nominated on the Sad Puppies slate, and they voted no award rather than give it to her. And then they turn around and say that the Sad Puppies want to kick women out of science fiction. So essentially they've been, because the Sad Puppies are opposing a clique voting system in the Hugos, which are supposed to be the People's Choice, they are, I guess, trying to kick minorities and women out of science fiction, even though they've nominated minorities and women in science. Yeah, it's just
what was amazing to me, and I guess you guys saw that with Gamergate too, was how many mainstream publications jumped in to publish these completely insane stories about how we were, white supremacists. I'm sorry, but I have trouble conceiving of a white supremacist movement that dedicates itself to overturning like the 5,000 people award. It's mind. I mean, mostly the only bits of white supremacism I've seen, they put on their goods and march it, and people can see. But to turn on science fiction specifically would be astounding. I mean, if there were dedicated white supremacists who wanted to keep women out of something, surely it would be a more powerful position that they wanted to keep them out of. Science fiction seems a bizarre thing for such people to concentrate on, and the fact that most of us are, I mean, Brad's in an interracial marriage, which one of the most appalling things last year was when they accused him of having married his wife for 20 years as a shield to hide his racism. That's unconscionable. You don't say that. That's not only stupid and impossible. I mean, who the heck does that?
Yeah, it does seem.
These people are very bad novelists. The plot doesn't fly.
They've gotten this idea, this bit in their teeth that everybody that they oppose, you know, they can do whatever they want to them in order to oppose them or say whatever they want.
They can destroy them. Yesterday, I got in a minor disagreement with someone on the other side on Facebook, and she tried to imply that I was a horrible person to work with. And what she said was, "I'm so glad I no longer work professionally with you." And I looked at her name and I was going, "What the actual heck? I've never worked with this person." So I asked, "Who are you?" And turned out she was the typesetter for one of my books when I was still deep in the political closet. That book was a book I delivered to fill a hole the schedule. They had on the schedule. I delivered it. It was typeset. It was far enough ago. It was like 15 years ago. That I don't know if anyone here writes, but what used to happen was the typesetter typeset the book, sent back the manuscript, you looked through it to see if there were mistakes, and you told your editor if there were mistakes. So I had no contact with her whatsoever. The book is an urban fantasy, in no way political, but she was on Facebook trying to imply that I was political at work and that I was hard to work with. It's politics of personal destruction. They disagree with you, so they must destroy you. You must do all these things they hate. And you told one of the things that they were using me. So I just found a review on one of my books on Audible. They accused me of being homophobic in The Few Good Men, in which both characters. Yes, I am homophobic because I created two heroic gay characters. It's my mind breaks. I can't explain it.
Yeah, no, I think you did. The politics of personal destruction, and that's they feel completely justified in it because you failed to virtue signal correctly. I mean, even if you are interested in seeing minority and women writers get awards on their merit,
on their merit, we're all for it.
Yeah,
on their merit, and part of what got me into this, I have to explain because in Portugal no one considers them. Well, now they do because they are part of the EEC, and because of that, they now consider themselves a minority because they also are classified as Latin, and there's all sorts of things. But when I was growing up, everyone around you is the same thing. We're just, we weren't a minority, obviously. So it never occurred to me that anyone was looking at me as a minority or as someone who couldn't get there on their own, I guess, or who needed special consideration. So when I broke in, I spent several years deflecting suggestions that I should write my biography. With strong hints, this should be the story of my victimhood. Stories set in Portugal because, this was what was authentic about me. And because I'm a bit, it can attest, sometimes to get me to understand what people are actually getting at in the 2x4 with nails, I just kept getting annoyed at them. And it was like, why do you want me to do this? Why can't I write, space opera, which is what I want to write? I expect in the future we're not stuck on these issues. Why can't I write fantasy? Why can't I write about Shakespeare, which is what I took my degree on and what I really like? And all these hints kept coming back. And all these years, I felt really angry about that. Because in a way, it's a way of marginalizing minority and women and voices. Because they channel you to where you're allowed to speak and what you're allowed to say.
Yes, they're putting you in the plantation where you're safely controlled.
They don't allow you to express yourself. They don't allow you to grow fully, and they don't allow you to reach your full potential. Because, you know, I'm 2 shades darker than the average Northern European. And, well, okay, it's more than 2 shades, at least they're gay. But still. But, you know, but it's irrelevant in the long run. It's the mind that matters. Yes, there are experiences, and there are things I'll tell in a different way. Like when I wrote about Shakespeare, Stratford-on-Avon borrowed a lot from the village I grew up in. But those are universal human experiences. I shouldn't have to label them as, look, I'm Latin, and I'm writing about my heritage. I can write anything. I write aliens.
Yeah, and I'm trying to make sure that I'm not too loud because I don't want to compete with you, Sarah. So because we can't get you louder, so I'm trying to go lower. I don't know if I'm successful. Yeah.
I will get better equipment eventually. At least this time I can talk. I mean.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's just an issue. Like, everybody has different equipment levels, guys. So sometimes you have to bear with it because it's not going to be perfect. But yeah, Kate is right. It's like hurting to you where they think you belong. And where they think you belong is essentially as a stable of minorities that they can virtue signal around. And it's
not
just...
not full people. You know, it's insulting. I am as capable as... Heck, I'm more capable than most of them. I mean, come on, I broke in my 3rd language. And without knowing anyone in the field, most of them couldn't do that. But they must treat me as if I'm somehow a handicap.
Yeah. Well, they would say that was, you know, you overcame obstacles, but it's, I don't know, it's at the same time as they recognize you overcame obstacles, it's like it's very condescending too.
Yes.
Like if a woman does, like for example, I'm gonna use women as example. If a woman does anything, it's almost like it's not an aspect of her personhood. It has to be shared with the sisterhood. Like it has to be as a result of the sisterhood. And it's like, no, you're erasing your personhood. I remember recently it was just this ridiculous exchange on one of my favorite shows, message boards. And they were talking about how the most current show was really good and it was written by a woman. And they were like, well, it's good because it was written by a woman or women. It was written by women. And I'm like, I sent a message. I'm like, I don't remember writing it. And then somebody else was like, please let all of them be written by women. It's like, why would you want them all to be written by women? Because one woman can write. Yeah. You want them all to be written by that woman.
Yeah. What matters is that it was written by a good writer.
Exactly. And they just take away her personal achievement.
I'm not sure about you ladies because, you know, but that part of my anatomy has never been really good at thinking. It's not very good at writing either because it's kind of difficult to hit the keyboards.
Yes, and it's even worse if you try to hold a pen.
Yes. Well, and then it gets soggy. So, no.
Okay, so we sort of covered what happened with Hugo, the Sad Puppies 3 with Brad, and the fact that they the committee ended up doing no awards on the ones that were nominated through Brad's process, and then you created this completely transparent process, and Kate, and I'm wondering what they did a couple weeks ago. What did they do this time?
Oh, let's see. I could, if I had been a tantrum-throwing toddler, have put in huge numbers of complaints every day of the con and several in the Hugo ceremony itself about being made excessively uncomfortable, and yes, that was the wording for their code of conduct. I'm an adult. I didn't do that. I just observed it with a certain amount of amusement. There was an effort made to try to keep the actual Hugo Awards ceremony reasonably neutral and not terribly political. It went into kind of skeevy humour in the process, but I gather that's fairly normal for these things anyway. I mean, when you're announcing the Best Novel Award with so-and-so's got a big one, somebody else has a big one, kind of obvious where you're going, especially given the shape of the award. But the two categories that were, well, fully rabid puppy nominations, they got no awarded. We got the what you might call the diversity winners, two of whom were singularly classless in the acceptance speeches. They had somebody read for them. And
so the rabid puppy slate was no awarded. Rabid puppy is a different association.
Yes, that's Vox Day's baby, as it were.
One person. It's basically one person.
Okay, all right. So the rabid puppies is Vox Day. A rabid puppy, I guess. Were the categories where you guys swept the nominations, were they no awarded?
They were not no awarded because we had a pretty diverse list of nominations. Some of the pieces that made the listing were among the ones that actually came out winners. Others did not. But in some cases, the best artist, Larry Elmore, was no awarded.
Do you know why? Was there any explanation?
Because all of those were Vox Day's picks.
Ah, okay, I gotcha. All right, so they're basically campaigning against Vox Days.
Yeah.
Okay,
and
but you guys.
There's a lot of just generic trying to conflate us with them because they don't like that we have some actual valid criticisms of what's going on. And it's pretty obvious we're all about good fiction, not about any kind of big message thing.
Okay, so just to clarify, the Rabid Puppies slate, which is Vox Day, received some no awards, and for anybody who's listening, that means that they refused to vote. The committee refused to vote or decided that none of them.
The voters, which I haven't looked closely at the numbers, but I suspect there was a similar action where you had a cluster of people deliberately voting down anything that they didn't think, that they thought came off a slate, or rather came off anything that wasn't politically aligned correctly.
Okay.
And in that it was both Vox Day and us that got voted down, because unless it happened to be someone they like. But
okay, so at least you'd advanced further since last year because they no awarded all of the Sad Puppies nominations last year. So you in some okay. So here's the question: Did you sweep the nominations in any of the categories?
Not really.
No.
They basically awarded the people they have awarded.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Their clique reinstated itself, basically.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Brian.
There are people in the chat that are asking, what's the difference between the Sad Puppies and the Rabid Puppy?
The Rabid Puppies, because they're followers of Vox Day, they want ornamental them.
Yeah. If you want it in a very simple, colourful way to put it, the Sad Puppies are doing their best to help put the flames out, even though everybody's screaming at them that they're racist for trying to do this. The Rabid Puppies are jumping up and down, particularly Vox Day, going, no, we're not going to even piss on that fire.
I see.
Okay, so
essentially they're like attacking or fighting really hard against this whole thing, the Rabid Puppies? And the
well, it's more than that. They're trying to make it ridiculous.
Yeah.
They're trying to completely discredit and destroy the Hugo. For instance, one of the things you'll see in the mainstream publications is that the Sad Puppies nominated, I don't remember the full title, but it's Space in...
Oh yes, Space Raptor Butt Invasion.
That's a Chuck Tingle.
It's a Chuck Tingle.
Yes, Chuck Tingle.
Okay.
That was the rabbits.
That was rabbit. And it was on purpose. They did that, yes, it was hilarious, but they did that because they want to make it clear that the Yugos are a punishment.
Actually, Sarah, I think it goes deeper than that. Vox Day has said outright he is fighting a cultural war and he wants to eliminate all social justice warrior types. He wants to take them completely out. You know, on that strength, I think, as far as he's concerned, the Hugos are really collateral damage. He doesn't
they
care.
are a means to an end. Yes, they are a means to an end. And but yeah, I mean, if Vox Day got his way, the Yugos would basically end in a couple of years because people wouldn't even want to win it. Part of what we were trying to do was save the Yugos, both from the idiots who are doing
And from
voting, and from Vox Day. And of course, you know, they keep trying to circumvent us and fall straight into Vox Day's plan. So, you know, that's where we are, which is very tiring and annoying.
yeah, I can imagine. So, in other words, I just want to clarify something. So, the sad puppies didn't actually get sweep any of the nominations. No. Okay, no. So they essentially just ignored anyone you nominated and voted for anyone they nominated.
Yes.
Yeah, which was what we were telling them to do all along.
Okay. Well, that's, and the thing is that, again, I would like to reiterate that this is a completely transparent nomination process that the sad puppies are using. You go to their website, you just vote for whomever you like, and they tally it all up. So there's nobody excluded.
Our gambit this year, we knew they weren't going to allow us to win, which is why, you know, people got very upset because they were like, oh, the SJWs are voting too, and it's like, fine. Because our gambit this year was, are they going, I'll look at this, are they going to treat us as legitimate things? We're doing all this in the open, we're not blocking them. We're not, no, they kept their little slate, which, as they do, and they still told lies and ran around calling us names and putting things in the mainstream press, you know, conflating us with the alt-right. They also went ahead, and Kate will have to speak to this because I wasn't there, but they went ahead and passed, although it needs to be passed in another 2 meetings, I understand, but they passed this bizarrely convoluted voting system that is so open to manipulation, it's insane, with the sole purpose of keeping us out.
Alright, so you don't even know if... So they essentially changed the entire voting system so that you wouldn't necessarily sweep any more slates, is that it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And it's not going to work.
No, it's because it's stupid, and these people don't... The math... What they don't get about math could fill several volumes.
Yeah. Actually, I'd go a little further there, because it's the majority of the people who I saw and who I interacted with at the business meetings, which had about, around about 100 to 150 people in attendance each day, those people were almost all just fans. They love their science fiction. They want to keep enjoying their science fiction. But the vibe that I got off that was the sort of vibe you get when you're interacting with somebody who has been told over and over again by someone whose approval they desperately need that nothing they do is good enough. And that's a kind of psychological abuse that will break anyone over enough time. The only thing in doubt is how long it takes. And that they are so frightened of offending this very small, rabid social justice clique that they will leap up and jump, and they will run straight into do exactly what Vox Day wants them to do, and has openly said he wants them to do, because somebody from that clique is saying, oh, it will stop him. They're caught between two extremes and they have no idea what to do. And a lot of them gave off the vibe of being absolutely terrified no matter what they did. That they could not do the right thing even no matter how they tried. And they were trying desperately to do what they believed was right.
Yeah, we actually spoke with Ian Miles Chung, I think last week. And something that I also noticed talking to these individuals who are, to just explain who Ian Miles Chung, was originally a social justice warrior, and he sort of stepped away from that. And he described actually being scared of the rest of his group. I don't know if I want to call it a group. It seems like more like a clique of cannibals. But so he described being scared of them, but at the same time he said he was terrified of losing that sense of belonging. And I've heard this from others who are sort of within the social justice warrior sort of clique. I remember going to the Sask Expo and talking to a fairly large web comic name, and he came over and he was like, you know, I don't agree with your message. I'm more of a social justice warrior, but I have to say that I'm less afraid of talking to you than them. And I'm like, and he's like, in a moment of self-reflection, he said, I guess that should tell something to me, but of course it doesn't. So it's just like these individuals, it's exactly like you say, Kate, they are terrified. They're terrified of being thrown out, and they're terrified of losing that sense of belonging. It's like watching people who are addicted to belonging, but it's almost like a drug. Like the belonging that they get in these groups, and they feel whenever they're practicing this what you called it, social or what did you call it, Sarah? It was destruction.
Personal destruction.
Personal destruction. The sense, the belonging that these individuals get when they're practicing a form of personal destruction on another human being is a drug to them. They're a bunch of drug addict zombie cannibals, and they're addicted to the act of ostracizing because it makes them feel like they belong.
But I've seen this before. I went to an all-girl high school, and this is typical of the cliques that form, and they bond by attacking other groups. It's also, in the end, you know, it's actually the same mechanics of racism. It's people making themselves feel bonded with a race or a gender or whatever by attacking the others.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing. They are doing exactly what they claim to despise.
But the thing...
I'd call it a cult. It's a very cult behavior.
There is a very religious undercurrent, yes. Doesn't have to make sense. We just have to all do it together. Except
that religions manage to maintain a relatively stable societies where this seems to be just careening into, I don't know, a wall or a cliff. It's a religious urge with no real check or balance or any kind of compromise with some sort of continuance of society. It's sort of disturbing to watch, but I think that there's no way to get into these people's minds because they're so scared of each other, that they won't listen to reason because they're acting out of pure terror of each other. So they're never going to. It's like, how do you get in there? How do you deprogram this terror that they have?
One by one, by you peel off those at the outer edge one by one, by demonstrating that you personally are somebody they can sympathise with and respect. That's the only thing that I have found is workable. The ones at the core of this that are causing all of this, you will never touch. They are poison.
Yeah, because I think at the core is probably a bunch of sociopaths.
It's their road to power. They are doing this for power. I mean, that's the other thing when I got in the kerfuffle on Facebook yesterday. One of the things that hit me was that this woman kept talking about being an SJW because she wanted to do good in the world. But what she was actually doing was trying to prop herself up and drive everyone else down. Ineptly, because she's not very smart. But that's what she was trying to do. And it's what most of them are doing. They are, for some reason, deeply broken individuals. And, you know, I know it's kind of cliche to say that villains are wounded, but they are deeply broken at some level, and the only self-worth that they can find is in attacking others, because it gives them a sense of power. And that's fine. We're never going to touch them. They are not actually redeemable. Now, I'm going to disagree with Kate. You kind of have to understand. John Ringo was talking about giving Kate the tilting at windmills award. I think Kate is profoundly optimistic about this. I don't think most of these people can be touched. Someone said that up until about 45, you can change your political views wholesale. I mean, I did. And it's, you know, it's like suddenly you've been reading a bunch of things that have accumulated at the back of your head, and one day you wake up and Mike is at 31. And you go, wait, none of that stuff I was told makes any sense, and it doesn't even work together. And then you start rebuilding from, you know, and you do an awful lot of primary source reading. And it's possible, but most people to whom this happens is before 45. The people we're dealing with at WorldCon have several complicating factors. First, most of them are over 45. Second, when they became fans, and we actually had someone have a semi-hysterical reaction to us online and say that, you know, we wanted to bring in all these other people and that would destroy, she didn't use this term, but it would destroy your safe space. Because these people, you have to remember, they became fans. I'm 53, and I kind of caught the edge of that, but I think most people growing abroad, growing up abroad. I also grew abroad, but too broad. But the science fiction and geekdom were ghettos. We were not normal. We were, especially for women. And what I find really interesting about this is that they view this as science fiction keeping women out, but it was the rest of society that really looked funny at women who were in science fiction. It's like, you're weird. And so women self-kept out to an extent because of that. And they had the cons, and they had their fan associations as their refuge, as the place to be safe in, to be happy in. I mean, I remember experiencing that. I went to my first con at 30, and it was like, oh my heavens, everyone understands what I'm talking about. This is so cool. And that's that sense of belonging before the crazy people took over the center and turned it into we hate people together, is what these people crave. I don't think they can separate. What happened was the leadership, the people at the center. I mean, science fiction is always politically fractured, but it used to be that the people at the center at least made a pretense of wanting to include other points of view. Meanwhile, it has changed to these people who just want to scream microaggression and racist, sexist, homophobic. I need to figure out how to turn that into one long word. And, you know, it became a toxic environment, but it's still their refuge because they don't have anywhere else to go. In their age group, they're still considered weird for liking science fiction. They can't go anywhere else. So it's exactly like a cult, you know, that convinces you that if you leave, the feds are going to shoot you. So I think Kate is tilting at windmills. I admire her greatly, and I think she's touched in the head.
I know I am.
I won't send the men. Yes, but the meds are supposed to take care of that. I won't send the men in white coats for her because I like her, but I'm watching her in sort of fascinated awe. So.
Okay. That actually brings me to another question. What is the future of Sad Puppies?
Either Amanda or I are going to pick it up. I'm not sure which. We'll decide in a couple of months. It will probably be decided under the. I have these many contracts. How many do you have for the upcoming year? But the other ones will be helping. Of course, we're going to keep Kate's list. We're actually going to start including mystery also because they desperately. Mystery is in a very bad place. It was more politically. It was taken over earlier than science fiction, and then the print runs show it, except for indie, which is doing very well. What we're going to do is recommend and solicit recommendations, and the books that are on the top, probably every 2-3 months, we'll put a list up. And on the list, we'll note if it is eligible for the dragons, or the dragons are the new Dragon Con award, or also fan award, or the Hugos, or because they have different dates, or the various. I'm blanking out, and I know them, but the various mystery awards. And we'll just note that on the list, saying, the list will be basically stuff you should be reading, or you should at least consider reading if it's in your taste range.
Because that's one of the best things that came out of the Sad Puppies 4 campaign, was that we ended up with a totally awesome reading list.
And this is stuff you should consider reading. And these are the awards you can nominate them for if you qualify to nominate and are in the community. We will put probably a little spill on the page saying you really should nominate if you can, because it gives your favorite books more visibility. It's a fan thing, you should do it.
Sorry, go ahead.
What we're going to try to do above all is grow the community that nominates, so that, because right now, especially with indie and indie, I'm a historical mystery fan, and indie is taking over that to the point that I fully expect horrible covers with a picture of a monument to become the standard, even for traditional books. But I find this very amusing because I have a low sense of humor. But for indie books, and as we're going to a more distributed, because the one thing that's become clear is that indie is growing, and as we go to a more distributed market, it's no longer, gee, I got my local bookstore, or gee, I read so-and-so's catalog because I liked their books before. Discoverability becomes a real problem. So Sad Puppy is going to become an instrument of discoverability.
That's really nice to transition to that. Are you disappointed with the results of Sad Puppies 4 at all?
They proved us right. I mean, the initial complaint was that, it was a clique and they wouldn't let new people in. And they said, no, you're wrong. You're inventing this out of clear blue sky. And then they went on to prove us. I mean, this year was just...
Or even more than that, people have been, oh no, you're making this up. You're building up conspiracy theories where there's nothing there, while they were proving that we were right.
Yes. So we've ripped the masks off. We can go home. I mean, our goal was not to win, because after last year, we knew we couldn't win. There was a block vote that was going to come down on anything of ours. And then there were the rabbits being crazy. So we knew we couldn't win. Our point was just because they were saying, oh, we wouldn't have acted that way if Brad hadn't done this, and this. So Kate, who, by the way, is one of the most conflict-averse people I know. I would have been a lousy leader for this year because everything they told me I should do, I'd have done the contrary, just because they get on my nerves. But Kate went ahead, just sweet as pie, and did everything they said. If you do this, then we'll know you're honest. And they still, not just they still treated us like heck. A gentleman who is known as an associate of ours got kicked out of Worldcon because someone felt extremely uncomfortable at the panel he moderated, which, by the way, he recorded, and it's only Sins being a little boring. Maybe it's a normal panel.
Yeah, this sounds very familiar.
Yeah, and he got kicked out, and then they changed the story to he did horrible things after the panel, which Kate said he couldn't do because he was in the Sad Puppies suite the whole time. And,
Which he was.
And they are still attacking Kate. I mean, they are attacking Kate as being either a liar or stupid. Because she is, she's an instrument of evil and doesn't know it. And it's just unreal. So this was just to prove, no, it wasn't Brad. This was we're proven right. It was a click from the beginning.
And it wasn't just sour grapes, because as far as writing and readership is concerned, I'm a complete nobody.
Yes.
And I knew it from the start.
Only because you haven't finished the third book, which by the way.
Oh, I know. I have to get that done.
I figured out what's wrong with it. Remind me of it.
One other question. So, why do you feel that Box Day and the Rabid Puppy managed to sweep a nomination category, and you guys didn't?
Because we had one of the things they suggested is you should have many suggestions per slot. More than the necessary. Yeah. So we diluted our book.
I wasn't really aiming for a sweep of anything.
Yeah, this was part of doing what they said we should do.
Oh, never do that.
No, I wouldn't have. But it was absolutely the right strategic move. When Kate decided to do it, I grumbled a bit, but it was absolutely the right strategic move, because by doing what they said we should do, yeah, we didn't sweep the categories, but we still got the tag.
Yeah, so don't, next time, whoever takes over Sad Puppies 5 shouldn't do what they say. List the top ones.
Oh, we will list the top ones, but we're going to do mostly as a reading list. I actually, what I'd like to see is becoming an influence in the Dragon Awards. Because it's younger, it's bigger, it has a bigger audience, and I think you have a better chance at it.
Yeah.
This year, several people involved with the Sad Puppies, including Larry and our friend Dave Freer, are up for were nominated and are finalists for the Dragon. So,
you know what you could do is you can make this almost completely autonomous. Just create like some sort of script and just take nominations on a website, and then just have everything be automated and just put out the top 5 for each category.
Well, that's what I'd like to do. I would like, if I can get the time and energy, to actually build an app that will just take in what everybody says, so that all you need to do is go to the page and, hey, here's what's currently at the top.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Yeah, so that we don't have to compile it.
Yes.
Oh, I wonder if this is completely crass, the puppy mill.
Yes! Exactly.
I love it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And they can...
Look, the Hugos, because of their incredibly bizarre system, Foxday is going to eat them. And he's going to eat them over the next several years. Because what they did was make it incredibly playable by a disciplined minority, which he has. So we're going to wait until they crash and burn, and then maybe we'll get interested again. I mean, Kate says, you know, she doesn't want to give up on the award of Heinlein one. But I don't see at this point, they won't take it down to irrelevancy. And at this point, I don't think we can fight them because they are a clique and they are a organized clique, which we're not. The individualists failed to organize. They have the backing of a major publishing house. There is really nothing much we can do. But we are in such a state of flux as a field. The disruption in publishing, the losing of power of the push model, that I don't think they can hold much longer. We're just going to have to let it go down for the count for a while. But yeah, we'll continue providing a reading list. We'll continue providing, you know, if you do have a Hugo, for instance, the problem with the Hugo is that you're supporting them, and what they did last year was use our supporting memberships to throw a great big party and the assholes. Literally, they distributed wooden assholes to. Anyway, so this year I didn't buy a supporting membership. I could nominate, but I couldn't vote. And I think that's a great part of the reason we didn't sweep categories and we didn't have that many votes in the end, is because a lot of people were in the same position. They said, you know, after seeing the disgraceful behavior last year, I knew this year that was happening. And I didn't want to keep in mind. So. Okay,
I think we're pretty much exhausted. The what's going on?
Let Kate, because Kate has the hope and the plans, and so
I can see the Doge attempting to find the caramel in the lamp there with his tongue. It's something's in there. He's going for it. So I think that's a sign that we're. But thank you for fighting the good fight, Kate. I think you should just automate it and just let it run each year on its own. And let them scream about this automated system.
Well, there were people who were expressing absolute shock that what was on the list was not anything that I had actually said I liked. Duh! I wasn't doing my preferences. I was doing what other people had put in and voted on.
Yeah, they're going to do that. I next time, don't even care about what they say. You know,
it's amusing.
Either that, or I guess throw your hat in with Vox and just burn the house down. Sorry?
Go rabid.
Go rabid.
A lot of the SADs have gone rabid.
It sounds like the sad puppies and the rabid puppies. It sounds like it's very similar to Gamergate, where for a while there was a divide within Gamergate. There were the people that wanted to play nice and were very much focused on just the ethics in games journalism, and they didn't really want to fight against social justice warriors, and many of them believed in you know, a lot of the ideas. They just didn't like the way it was executed. They didn't like the dishonesty and the hypocrisy and stuff. And then there were the people within Gamergate that were like, social justice warriors are the root cause. They are the disease. This Gamergate thing is simply a symptom, and we have to fight it. And it actually became divided in that way. And I think that division still exists, because Gamergate's not really done. It's just that, you know, Twitter and a lot of social media has basically either stopped talking about it and said, oh, these guys are irrelevant, or they've blocked them. Or occasionally they still bring them up and say, yeah, that irrelevant thing is still, you know, a looming shadow in the internet. And seriously, they can't decide whether Gamergate is insignificant or a genuine threat to all women everywhere. So,
isn't cognitive dissonance so much fun?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I noticed that's actually kind of similar. I'd be interested to talk to rabid puppies to see what their I don't know, ideas
We
are.
mean what Vox Day means, because he's basically, it's just like the rabid puppy.
Yes,
Yeah.
Fox Day.
is the mind behind it.
Yes, you might have an interesting discussion with Vox.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean,
I'm sure
I've seen discussions that he's had on other people's channels, and
He is alt-right, so, you
yeah.
know.
That's okay. We've had plenty of interesting people on this channel.
Mhm.
Deeply interesting.
We're okay with whatever. Yes.
Yeah, really.
Yes.
And part of it was, we don't know, I call him the cunt. Which I
The cunt?
No, C-O-U-N-T. The cunt of Monte Cristo.
The cunt of Monte Cristo. I said, oh, gotcha.
Yes, I have an accent. I'm
Yeah, that's
sorry.
a
Some of
great
the words are friendly and fortunate. Because he started out as a fairly normal, fairly libertarian-ish beginning writer. And I don't know this. I didn't trace the primary sources, but people I trust have. And they said, out of nothing, the
Nielsen
Havens,
Havens.
yes, at
Tor
decided to do war on him for no reason anyone else could discern. And, you know, he is now out for revenge and blood. It's very Monte Cristo. I like him as. So,
Yeah.
I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying that on a public broadcast.
The cunt of Monte Cristo. I don't think you're going to get in trouble for saying it on our channel.
No.
Oh no, I am, because he is going to find out about it and write a post about how horrible.
Or we might just get demonetized.
Or,
What do you
or
really?
how misunderstood. He could choose to write one about how misunderstood you, or how you are misunderstanding him. He's done that one before.
Yes, that's quite possible. No, he did a couple of posts attacking me, which I completely ignored because I was on
You weren't even in the country at the time.
No, I wasn't. And it was funnier than heck because he was interpreting automated posts I'd left to go up as answers to him. Like watching a bird attack a mirror. It was disturbing and funnier than heck. So anyway, I'm going to get in trouble for saying all this stuff. But
It's okay.
I will say he has a point, or I will say he has more point than the people is fighting.
Yeah, but just make sure you have your flame-proof underwear when you do get him on the show, because you will get a lot of flack.
Yes.
For having Vox on? Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
I'm sure we will.
Yeah, probably.
I'm
Oh
sure.
yes,
Maybe we'll label it the cunt of Monte Cristo.
Yes.
there
indeed.
are those who are convinced he is the ultimate in evil.
Yes, he is.
Oh, you mean we're not?
No, he is. Even though Kate and I are the most evil person on earth together, we don't understand how. But he surpasses us. Sorry,
see.
someone proclaimed that about us over something stupid.
So he's
Okay, well-
he's edgier.
Yes.
His edge is sharp. It was a mono edge. He is Sonic the Hedgehog.
The edge. Oh, God. All right.
A slicing edge of death, something like that.
We're gonna actually try to get True's.
David Truesdale?
Yes, we're gonna try to get him on.
Wait, could you say that
Talk
name
to him.
again? Because I didn't hear it.
I didn't.
David Trust.
I think you did that purposely, didn't you, Brian?
No, I did it because there are listeners who didn't hear it either.
Oh, Dave Truesdale.
Dave
He
Truesdale.
is the
Okay.
editor.
Dave Truesdale.
He is the editor of Tangent Online, which is a review magazine. He's also one of the nicest, mildest people you can meet. You know, it was when they started saying you were so horrible in the panel. I'm going, Dave. We're talking Dave. I can't even.
Yeah, they do that a
Yes.
lot.
Well, you know, people who need to get somebody ejected because that person makes them feel uncomfortable, they really should be going back to the nursery where they belong, because that's not how the real world works. That's not what adults are like. You're going to be in situations where you're uncomfortable.
Yes, but we've ascertained that these individuals think that they think with their lower bits, shall we say. So obviously, if you're stimulating their lower bits with your wrong thought, that's rape. Is that
I didn't
too
need
horrible?
that mental image.
Yeah.
I did not need that mental image, especially not with the Hugo rocket.
Oh God! Brian, please, let's end this before it gets worse. I get worse, and you know.
Okay, so are we wrapping this bitch up?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
And you can finally get out whatever's in that lamp.
I need to go feed the male humans and the male cats, because they're all roaming around disconsolately and looking in here every few minutes. So.
Oh.
All right.
Thank you for having us on.
Thank
Yes,
you,
thank you.
Sarah.
Thank you for coming on.
you, Kate. Brad, you're dead to us.
I
And,
bet he thinks it's tomorrow. I bet you.
yeah, he'll probably like be emailing us tomorrow. I'm ready for the show, guys. What's going on? No, I don't know. I mean, I sent it to him, so I guess. But we'll have you guys on again, and I think that this is just another sort of another front in the culture war, and it's good to look
The
at.
struggle continues.
Yeah.
I'm trying to sell a series of articles to PGM covering the various fronts of the culture war. We'll see if they bite. So
That's interesting.
it's happening in so many fronts, and I am involved through friends and all. I get visibility in so many fronts, and sometimes it's amazing what's going on in places.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to watch just how many areas that seem to be under attack by censorship-loving goons who want to use personal destruction to huff the sense of belonging.
Yes.
They don't feel alive unless they're shoving someone off the cliff.
Shoving someone's face in the dirt. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So
But we
having us on. Bye, Kate. We should let Kate go to bed too.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. The narcoleptic needs sleep.
Okay. So thanks again, Kate and Sarah. And like Doge was saying, you're dead to us, Brad. I hope you listen to this stream after this.
Yes.
Okay. Bye.
Where were you? Okay. All right. Good night.